Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the wild story of the original, undisputed king of cell phones, and we'll learn exactly how a company's greatest strength basically became its fatal flaw. For years, the name Nokia was completely synonymous with trust, innovation, and durability. But behind those iconic, indestructible designs that totally shaped how billions of us connected, the empire was quietly falling apart.
So here's the core mystery we need to solve today. How on earth did Nokia build phones that literally survived for decades, while the massive tech empire behind them completely crumbled? It's a crazy story of unprecedented global dominance, followed by an epic, almost unbelievable failure to adapt to a changing world. To wrap our heads around this corporate roller coaster, we're going to follow a quick roadmap. We'll start with their genuinely bizarre origins, hit the unbreakable era, survive the smartphone earthquake, dig into the Microsoft disaster, and finally, look at the surprising return of the dumb phone.
All right, let's jump right into part one, from pulp to phones. Okay, Nokia's origin story is honestly kind of wild. Founded way back in 1865, they were definitely not a tech company. They were literally a pulp mill making paper in Finland. Fast forward to 1967, and they're making rubber boots and cables before finally dipping their toes into electronics. In 1979, they bought a company called Mobira, which led to some very early, super clunky car phones. But the real game changer hit in 1992. That's when they launched the 1011, the very first commercial mobile phone designed for the brand new GSM digital network. Talk about accidentally stumbling into a massive communications goldmine.
You see, their secret weapon during the Cold War was this brilliant strategic neutrality. By acting as a crucial bridge between East and West, Nokia secured highly lucrative Soviet trade deals. This unique positioning gave them the massive cash flow they needed to aggressively pivot into advanced electronics, eventually allowing them to phase out their basic product lines and become one of Europe's largest television and phone manufacturers.
Which perfectly sets the stage for part two, the unbreakable era. Right at the dawn of the new millennium, Nokia released an absolute legend, the 3310. You definitely know it. Helicopter parents absolutely loved this thing because kids couldn't break it, and kids loved it because of games like Snake and the freedom to finally text their friends. It was released at the exact right time. It had a super sturdy, one-piece design with no fragile plastic antennas to snap off and a battery that felt like it literally lasted forever. It was an easy-to-pocket status symbol that was practically indestructible.
And consumer demand for these devices was absolutely staggering. By 1998, they had zoomed right past the American giant Motorola, producing over 100 million mobile phones. They completely owned the global market. They had gone all in on communications, and boy, was it paying off.
Just to put that into perspective, that dominance translated to over $2 billion in revenue that same year alone. It proved that their sturdy, workmanlike design was a total money-printing machine. They were charging full speed ahead, expanding into early internet services, mobile gaming, and cameras. They were completely and totally unrivaled. But, being on top of the world can make you totally blind to the ground shifting beneath your feet. That brings us to part three, the smartphone earthquake.
The paradigm shift caught them entirely off guard. Nokia was stubbornly selling a durable tool, right? But competitors like Apple started selling an entire lifestyle identity. Nokia kept its focus heavily on hardware, clinging to those physical keypads and marketing specific technical features. Meanwhile, Apple flipped the script entirely. They focused on touchscreens, super sleek software, and positioning their devices for trend-conscious consumers who wanted their tech to reflect who they were.
Now, it wasn't an immediate crash for the Finnish giant. Nokia actually hit a peak global market share of 38.6% in 2008, which was right after the first iPhone launched. But spoiler alert, they would never see those heights again. They were incredibly slow to adapt to the new Android technology suited for touchscreens, stubbornly sticking to their own struggling operating systems instead. Pretty much overnight, consumers didn't want just a phone anymore. They wanted a beautiful, albeit fragile, pocket computer. People wanted to easily check email, browse the web, and make online orders with a smooth touchscreen. The market evolved into the modern smartphone era in the blink of an eye, and Nokia's incredibly reliable old-school devices suddenly looked like ancient relics.
This hesitation forced Nokia into a really desperate pivot. Let's look at part 4, the Microsoft disaster.
Things were looking grim, so Microsoft actually stepped in, desperately trying to buy Nokia's hardware infrastructure to save its own lagging Windows Phone platform. Back in 2012, Nokia launched the Lumia 920, It was pretty successful, but just not enough to pull them out of a total financial spiral. So in 2013, Microsoft officially acquired their mobile division, needing a manufacturer who could churn out hardware in a hurry. By 2015, trying to pivot yet again, what was left of Nokia merged with the French telecommunications giant Alcatel-Lucent.
But unfortunately, the magic was already gone. The acquisition was an absolute, undisputed disaster. It ended up forcing Microsoft to take a massive $7 billion write-down on their taxes. The Windows Phone platform faced the exact same fatal problem Nokia did. It totally lacked the vital third-party developer support needed to actually compete with Apple and Android.
The sheer scale of this crash was just devastating. Nokia lost 90% of its market capitalization, essentially wiping out a tech empire simply because leadership assumed the smartphone era wouldn't dominate so quickly. They hesitated to embrace Android, and that single, stubborn decision proved absolutely fatal to their mobile dominance.
Yet, just when you think the story is completely over, modern consumer fatigue creates the ultimate plot twist. Part 5. Return of the Dumb Phone.
Today, we're actually seeing a massive cultural backlash against the very smartphones that killed Nokia. With growing fears that algorithms are feeding kids a constant stream of, quote, brain rot, we are experiencing this incredible wave of concern over what constant connectivity is doing to our attention spans, especially for kids. Heck, schools are even starting to ban phones from bell to bell.
And it is such a tragic irony. The anxieties of parents today perfectly mirror the parents of the early 2000s, and it's breathing brand new life right back into the dumb phone market. Think about it. Back then, parents bought the sturdy Nokias so kids could enjoy some freedom, but still safely check in. Today, parents are actively holding off on smartphones, hunting for those exact same simple devices, specifically to block out the endless stream of apps, videos, and those wallet-draining mobile games.
So, capitalizing on this giant wave of nostalgia, a newly formed Finnish company called HMD Global actually revived the iconic 3310 to serve as a functional anti-smartphone backup. Relaunched in 2017, it kept the classic keypad and that famously sturdy one-piece design. Now sure, it added a colorful screen and 3G internet service, and reviewers were quick to point out it lacked modern versatility. But for its fans, that total lack of distraction is exactly the point.
The ultimate takeaway here is really fascinating. It shows how a massive corporate titan can actually survive a near-fatal collapse by retreating to the background. Nokia is still an economic powerhouse in Finland, but today they function primarily as a behind-the-scenes equipment supplier. They ensure smooth production for other companies while quietly collecting a steady financial infusion from their 10% stake in HMD Global's licensing.
So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. As you look at your own highly distracting smartphone screen right now, knowing the toll it takes on our daily focus, are we ultimately destined to go right back to the indestructible brick? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on the incredible rise, fall, and totally unexpected rebirth of Nokia. Catch you next time.